would have ever thought that a trauma surgeon would find a way to have so much time in his life that he could make a difference halfway around the world? Stay tuned and find out how that happened.
Welcome to the Doctor's Mentor Show. If you believe that medicine is an industry and not a profession, if you enjoy submitting complex reimbursement claims, or you would do another residency just for fun, be advised, you're about to be offended. You should probably leave now.
All this talk about mentoring doctors is ridiculous. I thought doctors learned to do everything better than everyone else the first year of medical school. At least that's the way they act.
If you love assisting patients with vitality breakthroughs, if the right to practice medicine without interference is important, and you want expert tips for practice freedom and profits to support your epic life, welcome aboard and prepare to be blown away. The Doctor's Mentor Show starts now. Here's your host, Dr. Lori Barr.
Today's episode is sponsored by Profitable Physician Podcasters. If you'd like to become one, go to podcastdocs.com. That's podcastdocs.com for more information. I have a surprise for you today. One of the coolest podcasters out there in the Podiverse is here as my guest today. It's Dr. Nii Darko, and I'm so excited that he's here with me to share with you the amazing way he has created massive freedom and massive wealth and abundance, not only in his life, but in the lives he touches and he and his wife touch. They are incredible physicians, incredible human beings, and I'm so happy to have you on the show. Thank you.
Today's topic.
Live. Thank you for having me on the show. Really excited to be here.
Tell us a little bit about how you went from getting your degree at Kansas City University of Medicine and Biosciences. Then you went on to get your MBA. So it looks like you're going down this typical path. Then you did the general surgery residency. And then what were you thinking? Next, you did a fellowship as well?
Yeah, I did a fellowship at University of Miami for trauma critical care. So I knew basically in residency that I really enjoyed the life of a trauma surgeon, just kind of not sure exactly what's coming through the doors when the pagers goes off and you kind of feel like there's this black box. But then also at the same time, taking care of gallbladders and small bowel obstructions, just very run-of-the-mill type thing. So I felt like a jack of all trades with trauma surgery. So I, like you mentioned before, I went to medical school and got my MBA at the same time, and then obviously did residency and did fellowship. And I just felt like my life was just kind of going on this like a gerbil hamster wheel, basically. Every 4 years, I'm going to a different place. I'm going to a different institution. I'm, getting this credential, this degree. I kind of just came to a point where once I graduated and finished everything, the next question was what next? I just kind of had a point in my life where I just said, I can't believe I have all of these degrees and these credentials, and I'm not happy. So what do we do next?
So at what point along this trajectory did you meet your wife, Renee?
Oh, I met Renee from the get-go. So we met in medical school, actually. We had a mentor who graduated from the medical school also, and he was putting people in touch with each other just to make sure that once they got on campus, they wouldn't feel alone, right? I think a lot of times people are very successful when they're able to find friends or people from common backgrounds to just work together with and study together with. So that was his goal there. There was no romance whatsoever. We talked on the phone a couple of times, and then we met actually in person in Kansas City, and we just became friends. And then what turned from friendship turned into study partners. And then you know how this works. Just like the rest is history. She looks at me, I look at her, and now 10, 12 years later, we're married with kid.
I hope that everybody out there listening can appreciate the joy and love in your voice that I can hear, but I get the visual cues because I'm also watching you. So I can see your face brighten up when you talk about that progression from just study partners to something a little more to good friends to something a little more, and about how exciting that is. And you're still totally stoked about that. And that is so awesome in a relationship.
Thank you.
Now she's a OBGYN, correct?
Yes, she's an OBGYN. She got her MBA also. And so we kind of went down the same path. So, we were friends, and then we became, we started dating. But throughout the entire process, we almost felt like partners, and we helped each other out. When she was struggling with something, I would help her out. And obviously, when I was struggling with certain subjects or whatever it may be, she helped me out. So it was just like this, ebb and flow of working together, helping each other out, and, just budding romance. And then also at the same time, like this partnership where we're just, helping each other, trying to get, I see her doing amazing things, and I guess she sees certain things in me. And it's just, since then, it's just kind of flourished. And we get to look back and we're like, wow, like I can't believe we went through so many, so many different things, and we stuck together this long. Like she did her residency in New Jersey. I did my residency in Atlanta, and
wow,
we made it still. Oh yeah, for 5 years. It was a tough one, but we made it.
So at what point did y'all decide that you were the only ones for each other?
It's not fairy tale. There's maybe a little bit of serendipity in this also, but we actually took some time off every now and then, like between our 4th and 5th year of residency. And that's probably one of the more difficult times for me, at least as a chief resident. And we took some time off, and then I ended up going to Miami, ended up missing her like crazy. And we reconnected. For us, the hard part was obviously the distance. She's in a very stressful residency, and I was in a very stressful residency. But I think the thing that we missed was obviously like we were best friends. And, once we decided that we weren't going to date anymore, we were like, wait, you're also my best friend. Like this can't occur. So once we realized like, hey, look, obviously, I miss you like crazy. You miss me like crazy. Let's work together. Let's team up. Let's put our differences aside and let's make it work. And since then, it's been great. But we're not perfect. I mean, everybody, we're just like any other couple. We go through our things, and we make it work.
That's awesome. It sounds like y'all are having fun doing it too, which is,
yeah,
something that's so exciting about your show, Docs Outside the Box. You always feature people who are doing either fun or inspiring or something totally not expected for doctors.
Right.
And that's what makes the show so delightful. You're a very spontaneous host, really easy for you to just go down a path and make people feel comfortable and get in the groove of just bringing out their best. And that's such a gift. And
thank you.
Again, not something the stereotypical trauma surgeon is necessarily known for.
No, that's a really good point. I think I've gotten a lot of people who say like, you don't strike me as a typical trauma surgeon. And for me, I just have always really enjoyed being able to talk to someone who I've never met before. If I'm in a line in a bank, shopping at a supermarket, just try to find some type of commonality to make people laugh or smile. I've always been told that I had a gift for that. Sometimes it's hard for people to really understand what their gifts are. And for me, that was a hard thing, realizing that, okay, well, I enjoy talking to people. Now, how can I really make that my passion, right? That was something that I had a hard time doing. And when I started the podcast, I was like, well, let me try interviewing people who are part of my network and see how it goes. And as you've noted, like the rest is kind of history.
Yeah, that's so great. And just so uplifting because, well, maybe you don't remember since you've created this freedom lifestyle that we're going to talk about in just a minute here, but sometimes when you're in the trenches in the hospital or in your practice, you may not remind yourself of the joy that's constantly around you, that you can constantly enjoy. But, sometimes you let stress or a situation get in the way of enjoying that or treating yourself to that in the spare moments when you're not with the patient. And yet you have figured out a way to just help that blossom in people. And that I just want to honor you for that tremendously.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
So somewhere along the course of your rosy path down trauma surgery lane, there must have been something that you decided was not so rosy and that, you could do this for another 4 years maybe, or you could do this for another 2 years maybe, or maybe you could do it for 10 years, but you didn't want to spend your whole life doing it. What did that feel like? How did you recognize that? Because sometimes people who are in the trenches just get so numb.
Yeah.
That they just get used to it. So how did you break out of it? How did you decide to go against the status quo?
That was to this time right now is the most difficult thing I've ever did, because you have to remember, if you know anything about me, if you go to the website, you look at the About Me page, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and I grew up watching TV, and I kind of fell in love with the life of Dr. Huxtable, right? And living in Brooklyn, being an African American and someone who's a physician, like I didn't have that type of experience. So that lifestyle, the show on TV, like that's something that I just aspired to be. Fast forward 10, 15, 20 years, I'm a physician now. My life is nothing like that on TV, right? So I'm just like, wait, what is going on here? Dr. Huxtable, you lied to me, right? And so just like you mentioned, once I finished fellowship, I just felt as though I was just kind of collecting degrees, collecting credentials, and I just wasn't feeling fulfilled. So then what happened is I started doing locum tenens, started traveling to different places, and I was in Wisconsin, and I got signed up for the day, going to take care of these patients, and I'm in the locker room, and literally I could not get up to put my scrubs on, right? I am 1,000 miles from my wife, same amount of distance from my family, my parents and so forth. And I just couldn't get up, like nothing, like, I don't know why, like I didn't have any energy in my legs. And, it finally just hit me that, I just felt as though, I'm just kind of just traveling, and, every 4 or 5 years or whatever it is, I'm just getting further and further from the people who I love, who I want to be, where I want to be in life. And that really was my lowest point. Obviously, eventually I was able to get up and take care of what I needed to do. But at that moment, I finally realized that there was, for me, a distinction between being successful and being fulfilled, a huge difference. And I admit, I was like, yeah, I was successful. I got all degrees. But, for me, it was just like, I want to be with my family. I want to be with my fiance at the time. I want to be with my parents and spend time with them. And I don't want to miss any more funerals. And I just knew that there was this fork in the road right in front of me, that if I continue down, if I take the left road, or if I take a left, like there's going to be maybe a very successful trauma surgery career, but I may not have the family, the friends that I want. If I go right, then maybe I'm a good doctor, but also at the same time, I have everything that I want also. And it was at that point that I said, look, I think, Nii, you've been playing by somebody else's rules. I think it's time that you realize that, you have to set the rules. You have to play by your own game. And since then, I've just decided that to heck with everything else. I'm going to play by my own rules. I'm going to do it my way. And if I fail, so what? At least I tried. And that's kind of how I started on this path.
Again, I just want to emphasize to people who may be on a different part of their career path, it's so easy to overlook that moment. Mm-hmm. It's so easy to just brush it off as a temporary way you feel, and then wake up 20, 30 years later with so much gone. Nobody wants to do that. Or let's say you wake up and you go home and your house is empty because your spouse has left you because you haven't paid attention to them for 10 years. Or somebody in your life dies and now they're not there, and you wasted the time you could have spent with them doing things that in the long run don't mean that much. Or you're facing a health challenge yourself and are no longer able to do the things you wanted to do when you got to be who you thought you wanted to be, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, those are very sobering things, but that's the truth.
So just because you noticed the fork in the road doesn't mean you immediately jumped off the train, right?
Right.
So how long did you think about that before you took action? Trauma surgeons are you train yourselves to take fast action. So do you think you made a decision and acted on it like really fast?
So what I didn't mention is after that, I actually took an employee position in a hospital in central Pennsylvania. So now I go from determining my schedule and, being flexible and being able, even though I'm far away, I can still come back home. And the income was really good to being an employee. And that worked okay. But I knew at the beginning, me and my wife made a plan. We made a 3-year plan that we were going to stay at this place for 3 years. And during that time, we were going to try to pay off as much of our student loans as much as possible, because we knew ultimately that was the chain that was holding us to this traditional life. In order for us to really make significant gains, and in order for us to really, be the docs outside the box that we wanted to be, we needed to get the student loans out of our life so that we can have the runway to kind of experiment and do what we wanted to do. Technically, no, I didn't start being a doc outside the box immediately, But I kind of started thinking, I was like, okay, here's the master plan. In 3 years, we need to really make significant reductions in our student loan debt. And then also at the same time, we need to start really experimenting with things that we want to do. For me, podcasting. For me, also starting a locum tenens company. For my wife, it was starting her pre-med consulting business. So although I was pulling these crazy shifts and, at the same time doing locums on the side to pay off the student loan debt, I was just doing, it was just like a learning laboratory. When I was flying to all these different places, I'd have podcasts and I'd be listening to these podcasters, whether it's on personal finance or student loans or tech, whatever it may be. I was just listening to them and I was like, oh man, this is great. Like, I wonder if I could do this. And then I started realizing more and more that the hosts were literally either my age or younger than me. I started thinking, I'm like, wait, these guys are experts in their field, but they're younger than me. And that's when I started to realize, I was like, I feel like my life is just starting because I just finished residency or finished fellowship. But in essence, I'm like 35, 36. Like, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Like, life has been going, but I've just been thinking that I've been like a kid the entire time. So I just started thinking, I was like, if these guys can do it, why can't I? And that's when I said, you know what? I'm going to start my podcast. Whether it's all the glitz and glam is with it. If I have a great website, who cares? If I don't, it doesn't matter. I'm starting my podcast. It's going to be Docs Outside the Box. The website is going to be whatever it is. And I started asking people, hey, we've been friends for a while. I've seen what you're doing. You're doing great things. Would you want to be on my show called Docs Outside the Box? And they were all like, you don't even have a website. You don't even have an episode. What are you talking about? And that was some tough times, but also at the same time, like I was able to convince some people. My first 5 guests we recorded before the show actually was released. And I have to thank them so much for saying, yeah, I'll be on your show that doesn't really have a website or doesn't really have much of a pedigree. And one of those people was the White Coat Investor. Yeah. Right. And one of them was Dr. Alden Landry and Dr. Cameron Matthews with the Tour for Diversity. They said, yeah, we trust you. Yeah, we're going to come on your show. And since then, I was like, well, look, if those 5 people were able to believe in me, then obviously there's something in me that I can really, look upon and say, maybe I have a knack for this and let me just keep going. And since then, it's just been, to heck with everything. Let's just make it happen. And even with the locum tenens business, we just started. We've had humble beginnings and slowly but surely, we have like over 20 doctors working with us. And then with my wife's company, same thing. We just experiment. You use it as a learning laboratory. It's just been really phenomenal to kind of make a plan and see it flourish, but also at the same time be able to embrace failure, ultimately like kind of take pride in that and say like, you know what? Yeah, we failed, but also at the same time, we know that in order to be successful, you have to fail. Regarding
your degree, not just your DO, but your MBA, and your wife has the MBA too, right?
Yeah, she does.
How much do you think that gave you a better grasp on finances than your average doc who doesn't have that?
It's a good question. I am going to say it gave us no advantage.
Really? So, awesome.
Yes, I'll tell you why. So our MBA, the focus was on healthcare leadership. Oh. So yes, we did classes on finance, we did classes on economics, we did, the Excel spreadsheets and understood all those different things. But there's a big difference between understanding finance and company finance and economics and macro and micro, and then understanding personal finance. It's a huge difference. One of the things that, me and my wife would do is we would listen to podcasts from people who didn't have MBAs, people who were just run-of-the-mill folks who were paying off their debt. We would listen to Dave Ramsey. Like, we would learn so much from these people. I was telling my wife one day, I was like, isn't it funny that we have an MBA, but we're learning so much about personal finance from people who don't have their MBAs. And I said it's a tribute to them, but also at the same time, I'm glad that we're so humble that we don't care who we're getting the information from. It's good information. It's actionable information. Let's take action on it. And we did. I'm glad that you brought that up because it's such a distinction. A lot of people think, oh, well, you have an MBA, so of course you're going to do well, personally and professionally. It's like, no, not necessarily. It's a big jump for us. The big thing that the MBA unlocked for us, obviously, is the business of medicine. That's what helped us understand the business of medicine better was the MBA.
Now, when you talk about mastering your student debt and that sort of thing, how long did it take you to actually see how long the tunnel was, how to get that plan down? Because sometimes it's just like an amorphous blob of debt that you don't really want to face. It's just like a black cloud hiding the sunshine. How did you make that something concrete that then you could wrap your head around and chip away at?
That's a really good question. So Dr. Lori, what we did is, we had the marital bliss. It was great. We got married, and then we started merging all of our money together and merging all of our accounts. And we used Mint.com. She had $330,000 of debt. I had $330,000 of debt also. And when you put it into Mint.com, it just says, this is what your liabilities are, and this is what your equities are. And in essence, we were in a negative by negative like over 600. Yeah. So that was a very sobering moment for us where we just finally said to ourselves, like, Renee, and she's like, Nia, like, we're broke. Like, we didn't make any excuses about it. There's some people who say, well, you have a debt to income ratio. Like, we didn't use any of those excuses to say that we are doing well financially. We were not. We had a home that basically, quote unquote, was under duress. So what we did is we spent a couple of months basically tracking money. We didn't make a budget yet. We didn't use the horrible B word. We did tracking with Excel sheets, and we found out that we would spend like $400 to $500 a month on groceries. And then we would spend an additional $200 a month on food at the work. And we thought to ourselves, like, so we're spending all this money on groceries, but we don't use it by the end of the month. It all perishes, and we're just using all this fast food. We started taking all of these things in, and we just started saying, okay, why don't we decrease our groceries to $200 a month and then give each other $50 a month just to buy food at work, right? We started making these plans, and it just started working to fruition. And we just noted that, okay, look, if we go to a loan calculator and look at how much we will pay in interest if we follow what our student loan company wants us to pay, our loans, basically what we would pay in the next 15 years would be $1.2 million. And I don't know about you, I don't know about the listeners, like, I'm not willing to spend double on my education. It didn't make sense to us. So we just started thinking about ways in which we can pay more. And we said, okay, well, look, let's continue to live in Central PA where the costs are low. And we just basically set out to just say, can we do it in 5 years? We had a cash value life insurance that we did not need at that moment. We ended up cashing that in. And we started off by paying off our private loans first. And that we were able to do in 6 months. And then from there, we said, okay, well, if we can pay off our private loans in this month and this fast, maybe we can do federal loans, which were $500 and something thousand. Maybe we can do that in 5 years. Next, we did it in less than 3 years. It literally was understanding what our pain points was, which for us was we didn't want to be employed anymore. We wanted to kind of do our own thing. And knowing that one thing was the student loan and saying that is what we're going to attack. We combined forces, we combined our incomes. That's another big thing is her debt became my debt became hers. We faced it together.
Like best friends do. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
So the other thing I want to emphasize, no matter where you are on this career path, if you're listening, just because you get out of debt once doesn't mean you won't find yourself there again. Now, I don't know about you. Maybe it's not that way, but sometimes, even though money's just a tool, and I like to use that tool to trade it for experiences that are irreplaceable in my life, sometimes I forget to pick up that tool and use it appropriately. Or I set it aside and stop paying attention to it and pick up some other tool that's more fun or catches my attention short term. Was it enough working off the debt that created a habit that you pay attention to your money more than most people?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So paying off the debt, it forced us to really realize some of the mistakes we made in the past. One of them being cash value life insurance. I'm not going to sit here and poo-poo it. It's good for certain circumstances, but not for everything. So for us, we realized that cash value life insurance plan that we had, it wasn't for us, but more importantly, it emphasized how blindly I would follow someone's advice and not do the research for myself. So that's the thing that we realized that we needed to stop doing. So during these 3 years, we learned so much about personal finance, about how to invest properly. For us, we do passive investing, index funds and so forth, kind of life insurance, term life insurance and things like that. We just made a promise that we would never be in that type of situation again. We do have a financial advisor, but we do fee only. That's what we believe in. And then also at the same time with credit card, if we can't pay cash for it, we can't afford it. Every now and then we use a credit card, but that's mainly for points. And we have a direct plan, like we have an account that's made to make sure that credit card is paid off on a monthly basis. So the habit has been ingrained and pushed for the last 3 years that, now we know it's just like, okay, like if we can't afford it, that's it. We can't afford it. The big thing that is a big fear for us now, obviously, and this is just real talk, is what do we do with a home? We've been renting for the past 3 years. We'd like to eventually figure out what we're going to do with our home. So I think because we're so fresh from paying off debt, we're still kind of skittish about getting a mortgage. But it doesn't mean that we can't do really good practices like, maybe take a 15-year mortgage and maybe pay it off a little bit faster. We can still do that. With the habits, those habits have been pushed for the past 3 years that now, in essence, we just can't really see ourselves going into debt for any reason except for maybe getting a home.
I think the thing that strikes me the most listening to you and to the stories you've told so far is how honest you are with yourself and how honest you and Renee are with each other. You two work together kind of right out of your home.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So how does that work? Because sometimes, when you're working around the same person and living with the same person and everything 24/7 revolves around that other person, sometimes it can be hard to separate work from play. Sometimes it's hard to set bounds, and sometimes people just dance through it like it's no big deal. Tell us how that evolved for you.
So if anybody knows my wife keeps it real. She keeps it 100 or 100 in the house, in the Darko household, as we call it. So one of the things that I admire about her is whether it's me, whether it's her parents, whether it's her family or whoever it is, she always keeps it very real. And that's one of the things that I really, really admire with her. So if I'm in the house and I'm not doing anything and I told her I was going to get something done, she'll call me out on it. I think one of the best parts of our relationship is she is able to really separate the relationship from, what we really need to get done. Like, how sometimes you don't want to hurt someone's feelings. So that doesn't occur in our house. Like, we're very blunt with each other. And we let each other know, like, look, if you really want to take action on whatever project it may be, maybe we need to do X, Y, and Z. And, the other person may respond, well, I don't agree. And, we can literally have, a back and forth. Do we argue? Yes. Are there times where we just get upset at each other? Yeah, we're just like any other couple. The big thing is that we dream together. We want this certain lifestyle together. And because of that, we hold each other accountable when we feel like the other person isn't holding up their bargain to get to that dream. And then also at the same time, we don't just leave that person out. If I don't do what I need to do, she'll help me out with that. And then I help her out with it. In essence, like we argue just like any other couple. But also at the same time, what we do is we really dream and really envision our lives really helping people, maybe not having to work so hard in a hospital all the time.
Now, it seems like you two have built a habit of helping people. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's always been for us, reach one, teach one. We were involved in this organization called the Student National Medical Association. It's the largest organization of underrepresented minorities for medical students. And in this organization, we learned ways that we can help with diversity at our school in Kansas City. The school was very open to us doing those things. The way in which we helped was with MCAT preparation or with interviews. We'd let people stay at our house. And if they couldn't afford a hotel, they would stay with us. And then that just kind of just manifested to other things. And eventually we just kind of just realized that we're just kind of givers, really. Like we're not really takers. We just enjoyed helping people and changing people and leaving a legacy. That's what we are. That's what we do. And the thing that we take pride in the most also even right now is with our blog, even though it's small, it's Keeping Up with the Darkos. It's a blog where we're very brutally honest about our difficulties with getting our loans paid off and paying off debt and being married. And we just hope that by being honest and showing people that we've learned from the School of Hard Knocks that you can do it also. And other physicians and other high net worth individuals can be open and honest and say, yeah, I make over $100,000, but I still live paycheck to paycheck. It's okay to admit that. But now the next step is, what are you going to do next? We've learned that just honesty is the best policy. Putting our stuff out there and kind of living by example for us is the most successful path. And we're just going to continue to keep doing that.
Your next step.
If you're ready to get your message out through podcasting and become a profitable professional who podcasts or a profitable physician podcaster, please go to Podcast Docs, that's PODCASTDOCS.com, so you can get some documents that will help you start your podcast right away and know when our next live event is for profitable professionals who are podcasting. So go to podcastdocs.com.
There's more to explore at thedoctorsmentor.com.
Hey, it's Dr. Lori Barr. This show, when I was interviewing Dr. Nii, he was just so fascinating. I went longer than I thought we would. And because of that, I've split it into 2 episodes. So this show is the first part, where we talk about Dr. Nii's training and his journey along the traditional medical career pathway. If you liked this, you're really going to enjoy the second episode, where he explores his outside-the-box business model and his overseas medical work in Africa. I hope you'll join us.
Are you stopping at a hospital? Hello? Don't you know that hospitals are one of the sickest places on the planet? Don't touch anything in there and get out as fast as you can.